Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at noon.
Family and friends gathered this morning to pay respects to the teen who was shot and killed earlier this week, and the ceremony for him is just wrapping up. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jordan Schreier. This is video right here from the church's online stream of the service earlier today, where mourners brought in the casket holding 15-year-old Jonah Borth. Borth was from Grand Forks and a student at Red River High School. The service was held at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Grand Forks. It started just over an hour ago. Jonah was shot and killed Sunday at a home in Northwood, North Dakota. 32-year-old Samantha Wilson is facing murder charges in connection with the teen's death. We still don't know the relationship between the two or what led up to that deadly shooting. Another slick morning on area roads, and it will likely be a slushy drive home. Earlier this morning, authorities worked to clean up this jackknife semi on westbound I-94 that closed part of the interstate near Sabin. The driver of the semi lost control and hit a cable barrier. That semi was then hit by a second one. The second semi driver was hurt but is expected to be okay. And then later this morning, another semi jackknifed along Main Avenue and County Road 19 in West Fargo. That also closed down streets for a bit, but everything is now back up and open. And taking that live look outside right now, it seems we just can't shake that haze or fog of the low clouds that we have. And that is still making for some slick conditions out there. For what we can expect for our Friday and weekend forecast, let's head on over to meteorologist Lisa Green.
That's right. We're still working on clearing out that fog and the slick conditions that have resulted from it. You can see on some of our sky cams from around the region that we're still looking at some lower visibility in spots. Another view from Fargo on the tri-level there. The Tenney area in west central Minnesota showing some fog in the distance. Jamestown looking gray. And just over the state line into South Dakota, Victor also showing some fog there. And you can see on our visibility map, we are still reporting fog across a good portion of the valley. What has improved, though, is earlier, even about an hour ago, we were looking at zero visibility in places like Elbow Lake. So some improvements have happened there. And we're keeping an eye out for some drier air to work its way in. We're first of all looking at your visible satellite loop here. We're still under the clouds, but I'll point out where we're starting to see some clearing moving in. That's this line right here that's moving to the southeast. So those of us in northeastern North Dakota may see some clearing skies. It's also where the wind's picking up, and that's where I'm keeping an eye out for here today. The more we get that southwesterly wind, the drier air we get working in. So we're done with the snow for the month now that it's the last day of the month. Yesterday we got 1.4 inches in Fargo. That puts us at 8.5, a little under average for the month in Fargo. For the season, running at 42.6, that's about a foot over the average. So we'll see how February shakes out. We'll have that first week forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. New at noon, an oil field service company in western North Dakota will have to pay a hefty fine for a well site blowout. Henry Hill Oil Services has been ordered to pay $1 million for a saltwater spill and other charges. The well, owned by the Williston-based company, spilled over 10,000 gallons of heavily saturated saltwater, also known as brine. Regulators say the company failed to pressure test the equipment to prevent those kinds of blowouts, nor did they adequately clean up that spill. The company has not commented on the settlement. Also new at noon, another report is confirming it has been a tough year for American farmers. Farm bankruptcies jumped 20% last year. That's the highest level since 2011. The American Farm Bureau says market uncertainty and the trade wars contributed to the increase in farms going out of business. In our consumer alert this afternoon, spending slowed in the month of December. The Commerce Department reported today that consumer spending rose 0.3% last month. That's down 0.1 of a percentage point from November. Income growth also slowed despite a historically tight labor market. Consumer spending is closely watched because it accounts for 70% of economic activity. The FBI is warning of new online threats to personal and credit card information. Skimmers have gone high-tech with e-skimmers. Cyber criminals can break into a web server directly or break into a common server that supports many online shopping websites to compromise them all, stealing your credit card info. Experts say never save your credit card numbers online, and they say to never use your debit card online either. Now to that deadly and dangerous coronavirus, where a global emergency has been declared with more than 200 dead and nearly 10,000 confirmed cases. The CDC has warned of a scary new transmission of the virus here in the U.S. Miguel Almaguer reports.
This morning, the State Department taking an extraordinary step, issuing a level 4 do not travel to China advisory for the entire country. It comes after alarming news in Chicago, the CDC announcing a new case of coronavirus, the first time it's been spread person to person in the U.S.
It makes me nervous because I don't know a lot about it.
It was passed on by a woman who had visited Wuhan to her husband, who had not traveled to China. Their family tells NBC News the victim's 1-year-old grandson has now developed a fever and is being tested for the virus. The alarming news comes after a group of 195 Americans arrived in Southern California on a chartered flight from Wuhan. Now word one of them tried to leave the secure base where the passengers are under a voluntary 72-hour hold. That passenger is now under a mandatory quarantine. Another passenger, Matt McCoy, says he paid $1,000 to get a seat on the chartered flight and has no problem being screened 3 to 5 times a day.
We're checking nose sample, saliva sample, back of throat near the tonsils, or back of throat. They need that samples and they need blood.
Off the coast of Italy, a major scare on the sea. 6,000 people, including more than 100 Americans, forced to stay on a cruise ship in tight quarters until health officials cleared a Chinese passenger who had a fever but ultimately not the virus.
Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems and which are ill-prepared to deal with it.
With the death toll soaring, China finds itself even more isolated, entire cities locked down. Residents seeming to take extreme measures to prevent the virus. These images, some intended as a joke, going viral amid a shortage on masks. This morning, a global health emergency, now growing here at home.
There is some good news. The first man to be diagnosed with the coronavirus living in the U.S. has now been discharged from the hospital. The North Dakota Department of Health is monitoring the situation in the state and hasn't found any cases of the virus here. You're going to be hanging on to the edge of your seats at this year's Monster Jam. The Fearless drivers will be taking the track at the Fargo Dome with the first show tonight at 7. For many of the drivers, being a part of the Monster Jam crew has always been a dream. This is especially true for Earthshaker driver Tristan England. Since the age of 7, he knew he wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps. And when he dropped the news that he was going to be a driver, no one was surprised. He wanted to live out the legacy.
Of course, he knew it was coming. It's in the blood. I mean, I just had my firstborn son. His name's Carson Crash. So he's 7 months old. He's definitely going to live up to the name. Hopefully, he wants to drive a Monster Jam truck just like Dad.
Besides the trucks, there will also be speedsters and ATV competitions. For tickets and showtimes, just visit our website or our app and click on the Hot button.